Welcome, everyone. This is going to be an hour-long masterclass on what I call my Create framework. And I'll give you a little bit of background on that as we begin. I am Sheila Williams, and I'm happy that most people on this call do know me. And yet, I love the fact that we have some new people as well. I am a midlife mindset coach. I offer private coaching, group memberships, as well as online workshops, which you are present at right now today. I used to be a school teacher, and then I worked in IT as a corporate trainer, and I love the variety of experiences that life has offered me. And that has given me so many opportunities to engage with different types of people and situations. I also am a mother of three, which, of course, that's a whole other lifetime of experiences built in. And so it's been a lot of fun to learn how to navigate the world in a way that serves me best. And I learned that through many years of it not feeling very good. And so, what I do these days is I help people understand that how they think can be much more important than what they do in terms of finding and creating a life that feels better for them. And obviously, our actions matter, but I do believe we need to focus on how we think about what is going on around us. It allows us to be much less reactive, and our feelings are less conditional. We can actually choose how to feel and then let everything else line up to match that. And that makes me feel good. So, I will also be talking at the end of the call today about a program I am very excited about. I decided to put some structure around how I speak to people and what I offer them, and I called it the Create framework. It's what we're going to be talking about today. And from that, I have actually developed a 2-week program that has private coaching and self-guided activities where you can learn this framework for yourself and have access to activities to help create the habits to sustain and continue to let it be front of mind for you. Again, this process of how you think about things and how those thoughts create the beliefs that you then base your actions on. And that is an absolute key component. So over 2 weeks, we spend 4 calls together, and we focus on one specific topic that matters to you, and we allow you to shift completely in terms of how you perceived it in the beginning versus the end. And the feedback has been wonderful for people who have gone through it so far. So I am still testing and tweaking, which means that I'm offering it at a very low price right now. And I'm excited for more people to go through and have the opportunity. So that will be an invitation for you here today. All right. This is not a sales call, though. We are going to learn something today. And what I am hoping that you will learn and take away is, in fact, the 6 steps of the Create framework. I did send out a handout. I will drop the link and get that to you as again today if you don't have access to it, if you didn't see it in the email. I will send it in the replay email as well. If you are multitasking and you can't be paying attention to a document right now, no problem. But there are 6 very clear, easy steps. And I believe that they work, and I will explain why. We're going to go through the simple process so that you can see how this will apply for you, because we want to be able to reset faster. We are surrounded in a world by people and conditions, worries, thoughts. We have old thoughts, we have new thoughts, we have all kinds of outside circumstances. We kind of call that pushing our buttons. I believe that we can be feeling exactly how we want to feel, no matter what is going on around us. And I will offer a quick plan to keep your progress going. And I've already mentioned that. So with the Create framework, we have 6 steps. So with the Create framework, I realized that as I was speaking with people on any topic that they brought to our private calls or the group membership calls, that I was following essentially the same steps as I processed it for myself of how I listened to what they were presenting and what perspectives I took in terms of guiding their attention. Now, I will use the word coach because I think it's very common. People know what that means in many ways, but I do think of myself more as a guide. And in many ways, I love the idea of it being more of a navigator or a navigational guide. I picture that people are sitting in the driver's seat of their life. They have full control, free will to make choices. But when you're driving, you tend to be focused. You're focused on the road ahead of you. You're focused on, potential risks around you, and you're assessing in many ways, but it is going to be what is right in front of you. As a guide, I can be sitting next to you with the map, and the map has a lot of different options on it. And to play that role of saying, well, what do you want? How do you want to feel? Do you want to go to this destination or that destination? Do you want the nice windy road, scenic route, or do you want to take a bit of the faster highway route? And I can offer questions and suggestions possibly, but it's always up to the person to stay in that driver's seat and make those choices. So I also never say that I offer advice because who am I to know what's best for you? But I do believe that questions can be one of the most powerful tools that a navigator can use. And you will notice that that is one of the steps in our process. But we have to start somewhere. And I think a great place to start is choosing to be an active participant in your life experience. I'm going to be bold and say that your only job is to take responsibility for how you feel. Let everyone else off the hook. Let that, driver who cut you off in traffic off the hook. Let, the person who burned your toast on your order off the hook. You get to decide how you want to feel. And it's a question that does need to be asked often because we're not ever going to be a one and done. We don't decide on January 1st, I want to have a great year, and then never take any more responsibility to create a year that feels great for you. It is work. And that is a very consistent comment in my sessions when I suggest something and ask questions and people say, yeah, that is what I want, but I think that's going to be hard. It's like, okay, yes, it might be hard, and it's worth it. It's worth it because you do want to feel good within your life. So number one is just taking that responsibility and saying, yes, I agree. It does matter how I feel, and I'm prepared to do what's necessary and to keep engaged in that process and not be on autopilot and not feel as if every action is just for me to react to and I'm powerless, because I do believe that there's something very different available for you. So the second step is recognize. And that is where I believe when we learn to become more aware about what's going on, what are the thoughts that we're thinking? How do they feel for us? This is creating a separation, because as soon as you have an awareness, you're creating space. Because when we are heads down focused and we are so in our thoughts or our story, we're not allowing for the fact that there to be an awareness space, because we just are. We think that this is how it is. But as soon as we start to recognize and be aware that we are thinking thoughts, well, now we're not just being those thoughts. We are creating a whole new perspective where we know that we're choosing to think those thoughts. And as soon as we understand that, we get to see that we can choose to think other thoughts and we can choose to make different decisions. So by creating that separation, I love to use my hands a lot when I'm talking, and I'm always showing how you're making space. You're making space for something new, something different, different opportunities, new questions, new awarenesses. And that, again, is a very powerful step. You haven't actually done anything differently, except I believe you've done the most important thing, and that is to become aware. Now we move on to our third step, the E for examine. And this is where we are going to take a little bit more of that active role by being an observer. Because now that we have awareness that we're thinking thoughts, we can choose to observe them, observe more about the situation. As best we can, we want that to be from a neutral space. We want to detach from thinking that's good and that's bad and just noticing. We're noticing evidence. We're collecting data. I've used with many clients the analogy of a science experiment, because you're not assuming that just because one test didn't give you the results that you wanted, that it's a failure and you should give up completely. No, you look at the data, you choose one thing to change differently as the variable, and then you run it again. You're not making decisions about success or failure because you don't have enough evidence or data yet. And that's why, as you take on the role of observer, you're creating even more space from the conditions going on around you. And I love to just go, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting that that showed up for me? And because I've already chosen to take responsibility, I can notice that I'm creating this experience. And the more space we give between us, the actions and the emotions, the better. And yesterday was a great example. I was feeling very irritated by a lot of different conditions that I was choosing to react to. And I had to drive somewhere and I was feeling late, which is not something I normally allow myself to react to, because I normally drive knowing I have all the time in the world and I'm arriving in the perfect time. But I was falling into old habits and old reactions, and I was feeling very agitated, almost like I wanted to honk my horn at everybody. They were all doing it wrong. And thankfully, I do follow my own processes, and I allowed myself the space just to think, isn't that interesting that I am having this extreme reaction? Nobody is doing anything wrong. Nobody is causing me to feel this way. I am choosing. And because I know that I can create my experience, I am creating this feeling. I am creating this very slow driver in front of me who feels she needs to stop to go over a small speed bump. And I actually kind of laughed about it because, like, I brought her to me because she was a perfect match for how I was feeling. I was feeling like I needed to rush, so I brought an experience so that I could slow down. And it really did help me shift how I was feeling. Because again, it takes me out of the powerless autopilot role and it lets me remember that I do have the power to choose. And by going through the steps of being aware and being the observer, it gives me a whole different perspective. And knowing that can help me then move to the next step, which is to ask. When we are able to take on an observer role, we have the opportunity to be curious. And anyone who works with me knows that I love questions. I love asking a ton of questions. And I do have a handout if you would like to use the resource. I'll put it in the chat later on as well, that has a list of questions. And honestly, I would love to make much bigger lists of questions and hand those out, because sometimes when we're not used to asking questions, we might not have an idea of what to ask. I do think even creating the habit of learning more questions to ask can be an amazing way to create the experience that you want. And what comes from these questions? Well, number one is to remember we don't actually even need the answer. And I want you to understand that that is important. When we ask these questions, what we are doing is we are, again, creating space for the answers, of knowing that there is something else possible, but that doesn't mean that we have to figure it out. We are asking the question, and honestly, studies have shown, I'm not a neuroscientist, but what I have read shows that we use so little of our brain to actually process that I believe when we ask these questions, all of the parts that we're not necessarily actively engaging, they get to work, and they love a good puzzle. And so all those cells and neurons are looking for the answer in their own way. And when there are options, they'll just drop in. How many times have you had an idea and you think, I'm not even sure why I thought of that or where that came from, but it did come through. And it feels like the perfect idea or an amazing idea to at least contemplate. And I never would have thought of it. And so I believe that that again is very powerful for us. So questions that I often use are, how could this be easier? If I'm struggling, how could this feel easy? I wonder what other options are available here. A very simple one is, how would I rather be feeling? Or how do I feel? Because if I ask, how am I feeling about this? And I can list out some things that maybe aren't my favorite, I can say next, how would I rather feel? Because that is, again, part of our conscious choice. And it's important for us to remember we do get to choose how to feel. And I'm not always talking about I have to feel joy and happiness at all times. But if I'm feeling irritated or enraged, maybe it would feel better to feel impatient. Maybe it would just be somewhat better to feel mildly irritated or to try to get myself just more to a more neutral of, you know what, it doesn't matter. It is what it is. Sometimes that phrase alone can be very helpful because we're not pushing against so much of what is going on. We're just backing off and saying, you know what, it is, and it'll work out. That again goes back to creating the space. I love to acknowledge often in my own thoughts when I am going down the road of a story, especially when I am looping thoughts in my mind. I become aware of how it's very often simply going back to an old belief that I had, and it's a story that I'm bringing into this moment, which makes the question of, is that true, a really good question to ask. And it is amazing how often when you think, oh, but this person probably thought that, or they didn't really want to do it, but they did it anyway, and I feel guilty about that. Stopping yourself and asking, is that true? Do I know that to be true? Do I have facts about that? Or am I making this up in my mind? Am I making assumptions about facts? Am I jumping to conclusions because of something I thought they said or didn't say, or the tone of their voice? It's a great reminder for us to get more information and to understand that the path we're going down, all of those thoughts, which are creating beliefs, and we're going to act upon those beliefs, none of those might be based on anything true. And it's a great way to slow down our normal reactions and bring us right back to more of a grounded center where we get to check in with, is this true? How do I feel about this? How would I rather feel? How could this feel easier? And noticing for yourself, are there specific questions that tend to feel even better than others? Because when you are in the moments of high stress, using those questions that you already know work well, that's a great way to quickly bring yourself out of that reactive autopilot stage. Okay, we're moving on to number 5, and this is tools. I used to use an analogy with my young son, and he struggled a little bit. They're all kind of labels these days. Back then, we didn't know what a lot of those were. I just knew he was very sensitive. And I often talked about putting tools in his tool belt because his dad often wore a tool belt and would use tools. He'd help him around the house. So I knew that that mattered to him. He understood what that meant. And having tools, again, can help you feel more empowered and more able to be in control of choosing your experience, choosing the emotions and how you want the experience to unfold. Now, tools can be a variety. This is a tool, this framework, but of course, you have many others. People often use EFT, tapping, they use meditation, they use sleep, grounding, talking to a friend, laughter, exercise, moving your body, being outdoors, being in water. people have a variety of tools that they gravitate to very naturally. And I think it can be helpful to acknowledge that those are tools. They aren't just something that you do sometimes. They're there because you choose to go to them to help you feel better. It might be curling up with a good book or a cup of hot chocolate or with an animal. There's a reason why animal therapy is a whole industry these days, because it can be very calming on a physiological basis to be petting a cat, a dog, to being just in nature around birds and hearing the sounds. So acknowledge for yourself, even to make a list, what do I tend to do when I'm not feeling good and I know I want to feel better? Knowing that those are tools can be valuable because you want to have easy access to them when you are in those moments, when everything does seem to be falling apart. And again, acknowledging that whatever the tools are that you choose, as long as they help you feel better and you know that they're not doing harm, then that is probably a good tool for you, at least for now. And acknowledging that the tool that you choose can also change over time. So it's important to regularly check in with yourself and see, does this feel effective? Does this still feel like the best choice for me? Or could there be something else? You might be reading a book or listening to a podcast about someone who has a different idea, and you could give yourself the chance to explore that as well. So we want to make sure that we understand that tools are valuable because they're helping us feel the way we want to feel without needing anything else to change. Again, our goal is to be as unconditional as possible so that we can choose how we want to feel and then have the conditions around us be what they are. We don't need someone to stop doing something first. We don't need more money in the bank before we can feel a certain way. We don't need the new car or the relationship. Let's practice flipping it so that we decide how we want to feel, and then we take steps to find that as independent and unconditionally as possible. Now, the last one is kind of cheating because it isn't anything new, but it is empowering yourself. It's practicing. It's practicing until you own your thoughts and feelings and they become so natural so that it does feel perfectly natural to think, oh, I'm running late, but I don't need to feel frantic about it. I know that I can create an experience and the lights might change so that I get there faster, more green lights. The person that I'm meeting might be running late. I could be the first one there. I don't need to get into a story and a reaction mode about how I'm late and I need to rush. I get to practice to the point that I feel steady and calm and easy, knowing I will get there in the exact right time. Now, is that hard sometimes? Of course. It's great to practice on topics that don't feel, too loaded for you. You don't need to have a lot of momentum. Practice on topics that feel small and light. And give yourself lots of evidence that this tool works, these steps work, and you are fine-tuning it always. What are those good questions? What's the best way that I can become aware or take on the role of observer? I often recommend to people 3 deep breaths, not just one and not just two, but actually 3. On the third one, most people will notice that it does make the biggest impact. The shoulders going down, the heart rate slowing, the thoughts clearing. So having tools like that and practicing so that they become more natural is a great way for you to move yourself through this framework in a way that does feel methodical and easier. And that question of how could this feel easier sometimes is, oh, yes, maybe I didn't do those 3 breaths. They usually feel good, but I haven't done them yet. I'm going to give myself the chance to do that now. And then I can ask a new question. All right, so that's about the halfway mark. So perfect. I'm excited. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So on this document, I basically have a just a little page showing the steps. And this I tried to make very simple so that you could print it off and put it up somewhere that works for you, or maybe to even screenshot just this picture. You can put it as a phone screensaver, just a way to keep it as a visual so that you can have in your mind what the very simple steps are. So that was number one. And the last time I ran this workshop, that was all I had. And I thought, I'd like to find a way to keep expanding on this idea. So the next part of what we're going to do right now for maybe 5 or 10 minutes is that expansion. It might be a total flop, in which case feel free to tell me and I'll take it off for next time. But what I did is I got on with ChatGPT and I said, all right, well, you know my framework because I've given you all my information about it. Offer me a way for the people to go through it specifically and very methodically. Because the way my brain works is I like things in a very linear way. I like checklists. I like to be able to write things out. And so that's what this next part is. If that is not how your brain works, you might not find this useful at all, and that's perfectly okay. But I do at least want to walk through it so that you understand the idea. And again, if this feels useful, feel free to pass it on to someone you think might also benefit. It would be very easy for you just to share this document with them. They don't need to sign up for anything. We're just sharing information. So the decision checklist, it's not a fancy name. Maybe I'll come up with something better later, but using the CREATE framework to make a clean choice tonight. This is the idea that this is maybe a 5 or 10 minute process on something that is there for you. So, how to use it, pick one decision, take 5 to 10 minutes to fill the page, and then do the next move today. And that's important because we want to take action when we find that aligned next action. So, if it feels good for you, I would welcome you to pick something and you can go through it mentally if you're not able to write it out. But if you can, then it can be helpful. One decision. Now, maybe I'll ask a question tonight. Would it be helpful if I shared my screen for this or, yeah? Okay. So the decision in one line, the idea behind this is, what is it? What is it that's been kind of bothering me? Do I have something? Maybe someone hasn't been communicating with me at work. Maybe I'm frustrated about something that's going on. Let yourself be really clear. We're not writing a novel about it because you know what this is, but just write the thing in what it is. Trying to make a decision to do something, to not do something, to move, to not move, to take a job, to quit a job. They don't have to be that big of a decision, but we do have these in our experience and in our life. So letting yourself notice for you what is going on that maybe is taking up a lot of time and focus in your thoughts and letting that be there. So the example that I had was to stay in a job or decide to leave it. And then feeling the target. Now, what that means is, what do you want to feel? What is the target emotion about this decision? How would you rather feel? And letting it be there. And it's a great way to practice going through names of emotions because a lot of us, we don't actually name them. We know what it feels like for us, but we don't go around saying, oh, I was feeling a lot of relief yesterday. We might have been feeling it, but we tend not to name it. So let yourself consider, how would you like to feel after this decision is made? Calm, steady, relief, proud, confident, or maybe something else. And giving yourself the chance to go through this as a simple checklist to pick one. And now, in terms of the awareness, we're looking at the conditions because, again, the conditions in our minds are impacting us. We want to have awareness around them. So notice, what is the trigger? Why do you want to change the job? Well, the other person on my team never supports me. I feel like I have to do all the work. Okay, so that's it. No paragraph required, just what is the trigger? How does it feel in your body when that happens? I notice in the office, I get really tense. My jaw tightens, my shoulders, my whole body seems to close in. I feel really heavy. That could be true. Now, what are the facts about this? And remember, the facts are trying to get as much out of the emotional story as we can. We just want to notice what are the real facts. Um, my bonus is based on the work we do together. I don't think that, that's could be a fact. And this person doesn't do the work that they're asked to do. Again, those could be facts. Well, now let's move into an observer role, right? We're going through the steps of the framework. What can we observe? Well, what story am I telling myself? It's not fair. They don't deserve to get the same bonus as I do. My boss likes that person better. Like, we could have a lot of story around it, but just notice for yourself that that is part of a story that you tell yourself. What is actually in control today around this? Well, what is in my control? I know that I have options to talk to people about this. I know that I could create some boundaries that feel better. I know that I could talk at my next review about how I would like to have my bonus separated. Those types of things, those conversations, that's absolutely in my control. So that's it. That's all we need to do right now. We're observing. Now, how about some better questions? And this is where having a list of questions can be really useful. And then also practicing what questions feel good for you, because you'll have some go-tos. So what could be a better question? Oops, I went too far. I wonder how this could be easy. I wonder how this could work out. I wonder if that person wants to find a different job. I wonder how this person feels about having their bonus tied to my work. That might never have occurred to me before. I wonder why having our bonuses tied started to begin with. Giving yourself the chance to ask new questions lets you look at the exact same situation from different angles. And it's important to understand that, again, those questions that come up, we don't need to have the answers today, but just asking the questions can help shift how you feel. I wonder why that person isn't doing their share of the work. That can be a good question. I wonder if something's going on at home or personally. Maybe that's impacting the work. I wonder why their work seemed to change about 3 months ago. Oh, so now all of a sudden, instead of feeling resentful and bitter, maybe I'm feeling more empathy and wondering what's going on. Asking questions can really shift everything. And again, I still don't have any answers, but I've allowed myself to pick something different. So now let's go to choose. Number 6. What is one next move that I could take in the next day or so that could contribute to me feeling better, going back to my target feeling? I could schedule a meeting with my boss. I could invite my coworker out for coffee and just have a chat. I could decide what does it look like it. And then the time box means what's the time frame that I think this is going to take. So let's say if I want to invite my coworker out for coffee, that's going to be 30 minutes tomorrow or the next day. I want to get it pretty quick. And so I'm going to schedule that for myself. And then what would success look like? Well, maybe we have an honest conversation, or maybe I just get some new information. I know that I can feel better and more successful because I am choosing to do something around this. So I'm not just kind of dealing with it or stewing in those old thoughts anymore. Okay, so now hopefully we're up top. You can see it. We're going to move to the next step, which is tools. And let's understand what tools seem appropriate for this situation. Well, maybe I want to script out a little bit of what I want to say because I want to make sure that at the coffee, it doesn't feel as if I'm attacking them and saying, well, how come you're not doing what you're supposed to do? Maybe it's hey, how are you doing? I'm curious or I'm worried about you. Maybe that would be something, and it feels better to think about it ahead of time. Knowing that you can have a boundary script. Again, in coaching, we sometimes talk about boundaries, and I like to talk about boundaries in a light way because I don't think that we have to make big boxes around ourselves, but it can be useful, especially with this story that has a lot of momentum that it hasn't been fair. It might be good to think, well, what would feel more fair to me? I would like to come to an arrangement where I only do half of the work and not more, or I do more and my bonus isn't tied to it. So I can allow for myself to understand before I'm talking to anybody what boundaries would feel better for me. Checking in with a micro habit, a small shift. How can I support myself with one of my habits? And again, maybe it is taking a few deep breaths before any conversation, or letting myself know that I'm not thirsty or hungry before I have that conversation. So I have a micro habits checklist, and that link is in the chat. So you can download for yourself, if you don't already have it, a list of 10 small habits that can really help shift your day. Knowing that it doesn't have to be a big change to support you feeling the best way that you can. Now, in terms of support, again, how can you support yourself? Well, I'm going to make sure that I have time in my calendar. I'm going to prioritize it over the next 2 days to have that coffee chat. Or I'm going to make sure that I go to bed early the night before so that I'm feeling really fresh. Whatever tools feel best for you, this checklist is giving you a way to know that you're really thinking about it and setting yourself up for success. Not just, oh, it's a good idea, maybe I'll just do that, but how am I going to make sure that I am bringing my best self to the plan that I think will help me? Again, it doesn't have to be one way or the other. We don't even know the outcome yet. It's feeling better as you're thinking it through and allowing yourself to be open to the possibilities of it working really well so that you have that target emotion that you want. Now, the mastery part, again, this is meant to appeal to people who love to write things down and take measurements. Today's confidence. How am I feeling about this today? Letting yourself know that if it's a lower number, that's perfectly okay. You can check in again after the action and see if it's shifted. What evidence that I'm moving? Giving yourself a chance to test into this. How does this feel? I like knowing that I'm not taking no action. I'm not just being a reactionary passive person. I'm taking the ownership. I like that I'm committed to talking to this person. And if they're not open to it, then I know that I'm happy to go to my superior. What evidence do you have that you are supporting yourself? Even I'm going to make myself a really great lunch tomorrow to pack so that I'm treating myself for being empowered. This can be whatever feels good for you. But again, it gives yourself a chance to jot down a few things. Tomorrow's tiny action, what is that going to look like? And again, maybe it's writing yourself a sticky note like you got this and put it in your bag so that when you're opening up to sit down in the morning, like, oh yeah, I do got this. Know that it could be something small, but it is going to lift you up. And again, remind yourself, I am on this path because I'm choosing to do things that feel better. A debrief time booked. Now, this is obviously ChatGPT, but it is a great idea. Whenever we take action, especially if it feels like it's important, let ourselves reflect back. How did it go? So this is giving yourself a time. When will I look at that? Will it be at night? Will it be at the end of the workday? And give yourself a chance. Say, okay, well, how did it go? How did I feel? Would I do something differently? Just like you would on a big project at work, you can do a debrief. We can do this all the time within our own actions. The if-then plan, again, for those who like to feel super prepared, it gives you an option to go through some of the scenarios. If that person's really defensive, then I will back off and know that there doesn't need to be a solution while we're having coffee. I don't need to push anything. If they're angry, then I'll have clearer steps about what my next action will be. If they're really receptive, then I get to know that I'm finding a solution that feels really good for both of us. So let yourself play through those scenarios if it feels good for you. For a lot of people, they want it to feel a little lighter and just be in the moment. Of course, that's perfectly all right too. But many of us come from histories where we feel better that we have all those worst case scenarios ready in mind. We feel prepared. We feel ready for it. What this does is it helps us remember that if we are going to think about worst case scenarios, we need to let some also thoughts go into best case scenarios. How could this work out? What might happen maybe in between? And it's that practicing, giving yourself the time to focus on the other options, not just worst case. And that practice can eventually lead to not needing to think about the worst case, that you usually lean more into this is going to work out. But let's acknowledge that you're not going to go immediately from one to the other. We need to build some steps and to practice. And this type of checklist and list can help with that because, again, it's creating habits. It's letting you practice to shift your thoughts and know how does that feel for me. For some people, this might feel like a waste of time. Perfect. You now have evidence about that. And the important thing is to find, well, what does feel better? All right, I like this last one, this 10, stop doing. When I was working in corporate, I loved the very clear direction when we looked at situations that were going on, and then we'd say, okay, what do we need to start doing? And what do we need to stop doing so that we end up closer to our objectives and our goals? So this gives yourself a chance to notice, is there anything that maybe I should stop doing that could serve me better? And it might be, maybe I should stop having 6 cups of coffee. Maybe that's contributing to me feeling a little jittery and anxious during the day. Maybe I need to stop late night scrolling. For whatever reason, 11 o'clock at night, I'm scrolling through things thinking, I want to go to sleep, but why am I not just putting my phone away? So it's knowing for yourself, it's a choice, and maybe it would be good to stop doing something. So this list is beautiful because it does mirror the framework. It lets you walk through the steps. I would love for people to try it and offer me some feedback because I would like to know if ChatGPT did a good job or not. I don't know that I would have come up with this myself. So it's good to know. Okay, I am wanting to share just one more thing with you, and I'll do it while the screen is still on. If I go here and present. Okay, so I would love to invite everyone here, if you have not already signed up, to in fact join the Create Accelerator program. I think it is a very powerful way to choose a topic that matters to you and meet with me privately. It's not that we're going to go through the framework step by step like that chart does, but it can be very effective to know that I am in your passenger seat with the map, offering suggestions on your best navigation route. I have created 14 self-guided activities that are dripped out every day. They're very small. They take 5 to 10 minutes, and they are all meant to help you, again, support creating habits around being aware, taking on the observer role, asking questions, practicing with your tools. And I've had the feedback that they are very useful because it helps just keep it lightly present in your awareness without taking up a lot of time. So as special bonuses for anyone who would like to be signing up in the next few days, I am going to be offering an extra 60-minute private coaching session if you are joining the 29th, 30th, or 31st of October. And if you are joining before November 5th, you'll I said this probably the wrong way, but I'm also offering a 30-minute private call to map out a challenging decision. And I have another framework called emotional choice points. And I think it can be really useful to have someone walk through different alternatives with you. It's not a pros and cons list, but it is a way of understanding how you feel about your decision options and determining the best way forward. So obviously, if you sign up soon, you will get both of these. And after November 1st and beyond, would not have the free private 60-minute call. So it would be just the 30-minute call and going through the decision choice points list. So the program itself is actually $397 for the 2-week program, and the bonuses are worth $400. So I love that it just is fun to make it like even more in the bonuses are available, and payment plans are available as well if that feels better for you. So I think there we go. This is just the last little scene. I've got the link in the chat, so you don't need the QR code, but I was playing with how to make QR codes, and I thought that seemed like a lot of fun. So I think this program can be very effective, especially in understanding how am I thinking about things. That is so important. All right, I'm going to stop sharing one more time so that I can see you. And let me know if you need anything from the chat, but I think everyone here will have access to those links. The top link is called Pocket Questions. And that just has a series of questions. Again, I made it very simple to print out. You're welcome to download that, as well as the 10 micro habits to reset your mindset. And of course, the link to register for the accelerator.
I don't really have a question. I just wanted to say it's a very good program. Yes, the questions are very, very straightforward, and they're good. I mean, I'm not looking for the work, or no, I'm not in the work line, but in everyday things, it can help.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, I appreciate your time and your attention and sticking with me through to the end. And again, none of it feels new, but I think for me, I know for me, having a sense of a process to go through step by step as I develop the habits, that feels really helpful. It feels supportive. Instead of feeling out of control, it lets me kind of find my place about where to focus and where to start. And so I really hope that if you try it for yourself, then you will find that as well. And again, I'm always open for feedback. You're welcome to email me or message, and I will absolutely love to talk to you about that, because anything that we discuss, I'm sure will help add even more as I continue to build it and use it. So, all right, Louise, I'm so glad. Thank you for that. And okay, well, everyone have a great day. And thank you again. It means the world to me that you saw something or heard something about this and took the time to register and offered me your time. That is very valuable to me. And I appreciate so much you being here and sharing your energy today. So I will send out the replay. And of course, you have the handouts. I'll include the links again in that email. And yeah, until we see again, have a wonderful day and take care.